In a small, unforgiving frontier town where whispers traveled faster than the wind, there lived an old cowboy who had been cast aside by the very people he once rode alongside. Weathered and worn from a lifetime under the relentless sun, he was a man marked by solitude and silence, carrying the weight of years no one seemed willing to understand. Yet, beneath the rough exterior and the quiet eyes lay a heart that still beat with kindness, an ember waiting to be kindled by a moment that would change everything. One stormy evening, as rain poured relentlessly and soaked the barren streets, an orphan appeared, small, shivering, and lost. His clothes clung to his fragile frame, soaked through and heavy, the chill of the storm cutting deep into his bones. The town had turned a blind eye to this child, much like they had to the old cowboy, leaving him to fend for himself against nature's cruel hand. But fate, in its mysterious ways, brought these two outcasts together under the dark, roiling skies. Without hesitation, the old cowboy took off his worn coat, a coat that had shielded him from countless storms and carried the scent of dusty trails, and wrapped it gently around the boy's trembling shoulders. It was a simple act, yet profound in its defiance of the town's cold neglect. In that moment, the coat became more than just fabric. It became a symbol of unexpected compassion, a bridge between two lonely souls seeking warmth and belonging. As the rain washed away the grime and sorrow, the townsfolk looked on, some with surprise, others with suspicion. But the old cowboy cared little for their judgment. His focus was on the child, on the fragile hope that flickered in the boy's eyes beneath the shelter of his coat. This small gesture of kindness stood in stark contrast to the town's harshness, reminding all who saw it that even in the wildest and most unforgiving places, humanity could still find a way to shine. This is a story not just about an old cowboy and a soaked orphan, but about the power of simple acts to defy cruelty and kindle hope where it is needed most. Stay with us as we unravel the journey of these two souls, bound by fate and warmth, navigating a world that had once shunned them both. The old cowboy was no stranger to solitude. Years of wandering the harsh trails had carved deep lines into his face and left a quiet weight in his eyes, a mix of regret and resilience. The town's cold shoulders had pushed him to the outskirts, where memories of better days clung like dust to his worn boots. Yet beneath his rugged exterior lay a heart that refused to harden completely, a heart that recognized pain and loneliness in others because it had known them well himself. That stormy night, as the rain hammered down and lightning tore across the sky, the soaked orphan stumbled into the cowboy's path like a lost shadow. The boy was fragile, barely clinging to life beneath layers of soaked fabric, shivering from the biting cold. The harsh wind seemed to echo the town's neglect, a harsh, unforgiving world that had turned its gaze away from its most vulnerable. But in that moment, the old cowboy saw not just a helpless child but a reflection of his own exile. Without hesitation, the cowboy reached down and removed his heavy coat, a battered but cherished garment that had shielded him through countless storms. As he wrapped the boy in its warmth, a quiet defiance flickered in his gaze, a refusal to let another soul be consumed by the cold cruelty of the world. This simple act transcended the fabric. It was a gesture that spoke volumes about compassion in a place that had forgotten what it meant to care. As the boy nestled into the warmth, the town's murmurs began to stir. Some townsfolk watched with surprise, their hardened hearts softened just enough to wonder if perhaps the old cowboy's kindness was not madness, but something more powerful. Others scowled, clinging to their suspicion and fear, unwilling to believe that mercy could exist in the unforgiving West. Yet, the cowboy paid no mind. His only focus was the fragile spark of hope he had just kindled. That night marked the beginning of a new chapter, not just for the cowboy and the orphan, but for the town itself. It was a quiet challenge to the harsh judgments that had ruled their lives, a reminder that even the loneliest souls could find warmth and connection. In a world so often defined by survival, this simple gift of a coat became a symbol of something far greater: humanity's enduring power to heal and protect. In the days that followed, the bond between the old cowboy and the orphan deepened. The boy, once trembling and silent, began to trust the steady presence of the man who had given him warmth when the world offered none. Their relationship, born out of necessity and kindness, grew into something resembling family, a fragile haven against the relentless hardships of frontier life. Together, they navigated the lonely trails, finding solace in each other's company. The town's reaction remained mixed and volatile. While some saw the cowboys act as a spark of redemption, others whispered of folly and defiance. The orphan, once invisible and ignored, became a symbol, a reminder of the town's failures and its potential for change. The old cowboy's reputation shifted from outcast to guardian, his coat a visible sign of the compassion that still lingered in the wild lands. Yet, beneath the surface, suspicion and fear festered, threatening to undo the fragile peace they had built. Despite the growing tension, the cowboy's determination never wavered. He knew the frontier was a place where the strongest survived, but he also believed that strength came in many forms, not just in guns and grit, but in mercy and protection. His unwavering resolve became a shield, guarding the boy not only from the biting cold, but from the cruelty of judgmental eyes and hardened hearts. Together, they faced each day with a cautious hope. The orphan learned the ways of the land, the quiet rhythms of survival and trust. The cowboy found renewed purpose in guiding and protecting a soul that might otherwise have been lost to the harshness of their world. Their journey was a testament to the quiet power of kindness, a challenge to the unforgiving norms of the Old West. Yet, they both knew their peace was tenuous. The town's old wounds and fears simmered just beneath the surface, ready to erupt at the slightest provocation. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with dangers both seen and unseen. But bound by warmth and newfound hope, the cowboy and the orphan stood ready to face whatever storms awaited. The town's uneasy whispers grew louder with each passing day, echoing through the dusty streets like an approaching storm. The old cowboy and the orphan, once invisible shadows on the fringe of society, had become the center of attention, symbols of defiance and compassion intertwined. Some townsfolk admired the cowboy's unwavering kindness, seeing in it a glimpse of the humanity that had long been buried beneath harsh survival. Others scorned them both, fearful that this fragile bond threatened the rigid order they clung to. Despite the divided opinions, the cowboy's coat remained a powerful emblem, a beacon of hope wrapped around the boy's shoulders. It was more than just protection from the cold. It was a shield against the town's coldness, a symbol that even the most hardened hearts could be softened by care. The orphan, growing stronger each day, began to walk taller, his spirit kindled by the warmth not only of the coat, but of the man who refused to abandon him. Together, they faced the daily challenges of frontier life with quiet determination. The cowboy taught the boy how to read the land, the tracks of animals, the signs of weather, the subtle sounds of the wilderness. In return, the boy's youthful curiosity and resilience breathed new life into the old man's weary soul. Their relationship was a dance of survival and trust, a testament to the power of connection in a world that often prized solitude. But the past shadows lingered. Those who opposed change watched closely, waiting for a moment to strike, to restore the town's old ways through fear and violence. The cowboy knew that protecting the boy required more than shelter and warmth. It demanded courage to confront the bitterness festering in their midst. Their struggle was not just against the elements, but against a community resistant to compassion. As the sun set over the rugged horizon, casting long shadows over the town, the cowboy and the orphan prepared for whatever challenges awaited. Their journey was no longer just about survival. It was about standing firm in a world that had rejected them and proving that kindness could be a force as enduring as the wild lands themselves. One evening, as a chill wind swept through the town, the tension that had been simmering beneath the surface finally erupted. A group of townsfolk, fueled by fear and suspicion, confronted the cowboy and the orphan, their voices harsh and unforgiving. They saw the boy as a threat to the order they knew, and the cowboy's kindness as weakness, a crack in the frontier's tough exterior that could not be tolerated. But the old cowboy stood tall, his eyes steady and unwavering. He spoke not with anger, but with quiet conviction, reminding the crowd that the true measure of a person was not in their past or their reputation, but in their actions. His coat, worn and patched from years on the trail, was a testament to the journey of mercy and strength they had walked together. It was a symbol of resilience that could not be easily broken. The orphan, bolstered by the cowboy's support, faced the crowd with a courage that surprised even the harshest critics. His story, once unheard, began to be told, a story of loneliness, survival, and the transformative power of kindness. Slowly, some hearts softened, while others remained hardened. The town was divided, but the seeds of change had been planted. In the days that followed, the cowboy and the orphan found allies in unexpected places. Neighbors who had once turned away now offered small gestures of support, emboldened by the courage they witnessed. The coat that had once been a simple garment became a symbol of a community grappling with its own capacity for compassion and change. Though the road ahead was uncertain and fraught with challenges, the cowboy and the orphan stood united, their bond a beacon of hope. Their story was no longer just their own. It had become a call to all who longed for kindness in a world too often ruled by harshness. As the days wore on, the cowboy and the orphan settled into a fragile rhythm, finding strength in each other's presence amidst the unforgiving landscape. The boy's once shivering frame grew stronger, bolstered not only by the warmth of the coat, but by the unwavering care of the man who had become his guardian. Their connection transcended words, woven through shared hardships and quiet moments under the vast western sky. In this bond, they found a sanctuary from the judgment that still lingered in the town. Yet, the scars of suspicion did not heal overnight. Whispers of discontent simmered, carried on the wind like restless spirits. Some townsfolk clung tightly to old fears, viewing the boy as an outsider and the cowboy's kindness as a threat to the order they had known. Still, small acts of courage began to ripple through the community, neighbors offering nods of acknowledgement, a basket of food left at their door, eyes that softened when the boy passed by. Change was slow, but it was stirring. The cowboy, whose life had been defined by solitude, discovered a renewed purpose in guiding the orphan not just to survive, but to thrive. He taught the boy the ways of the land, the language of the wind, the rhythm of the horses, the secrets hidden in the scrub brush. In these lessons lay more than survival. They were lessons of hope, resilience, and the quiet power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Together, they faced each new challenge with a steadfast resolve. Every cold night survived. Every wary glance from a neighbor met with dignity, strengthened their resolve to carve out a place where kindness could exist. The coat that once protected the boy from the storm became a symbol of a journey, one of transformation, courage, and the enduring power of compassion in a world often harsh and unforgiving. And though the path ahead remained uncertain, the old cowboy and the orphan walked it side by side, their steps marked by the promise that even in the wildest frontiers, humanity's warmth could shine brightest. But the quiet progress of their lives was not immune to the harsh realities of the frontier. One evening, as the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, a group of men approached with anger simmering in their eyes. Their voices were rough with accusation, their intent clear, to challenge the bond that had become a symbol of defiance against the town's rigid rules. The cowboy and the orphan stood their ground, knowing that the fight for acceptance was far from over. The confrontation was tense, a clash between fear and courage, tradition and change. The cowboy's steady presence and the boy's quiet bravery spoke louder than words, standing as a testament to the strength found in mercy. As the men's voices rose, so too did the resolve of the unlikely pair, refusing to be broken by threats or prejudice. Their fight was no longer just for themselves. It was for every soul yearning for a place to belong. Witnessing this defiance, some townsfolk began to question the harshness that had ruled their community for so long. Slowly, walls built by suspicion and fear began to crack. The courage of the cowboy and the boy sparked conversations in hushed tones, talks of empathy, understanding, and the possibility that kindness could reshape even the hardest hearts. The old coat, weathered and patched, became more than a garment. It was a symbol of change worn with pride. It carried the stories of storms weathered, battles fought, and love that refused to be extinguished. Through their journey, the cowboy and the orphan had not only found each other, but had ignited a quiet revolution that would ripple through the town's dusty streets. As night fell and stars blanketed the sky, their story stood as a beacon, proof that even in the roughest landscapes, the warmth of the human spirit could light the way forward. With each passing day, the bond between the old cowboy and the orphan grew into a force that quietly challenged the very fabric of the town's beliefs. Their presence became a living testament to resilience, kindness, and the possibility of redemption. The boy, once shivering and forgotten, now walked with a confidence born of love and protection. The townsfolk could no longer ignore the transformation, and whispers of admiration began to mingle with the lingering shadows of suspicion. The cowboy's coat, once just a worn garment, had become a symbol that transcended its humble origins. Wrapped around the boy's shoulders, it spoke volumes about survival and hope. It carried the scent of dusty trails and hard-fought battles. But more importantly, it carried the promise of a future where compassion could thrive in even the harshest lands. This small fabric of warmth had ignited something much greater, a spark of change that the town could neither deny nor fully embrace. But change always comes with resistance. Those clinging to the old ways viewed the cowboy and the orphan as threats to the order they sought to maintain. Hostile glances and whispered threats reminded the pair that acceptance was a hard-fought battle. Yet, with every challenge, their resolve only strengthened. They knew that standing together was the only way to withstand the storm of prejudice and fear. In moments of quiet beneath the vast western sky, the cowboy and the boy found solace in each other's company. Their journey, marked by hardship and hope, was a story of survival, not just of the body, but of the spirit. It was a reminder that even in a world ruled by harshness, warmth and kindness could be the most radical acts of all. As the seasons shifted and the landscape around them changed, so too did the hearts of those who watched. The old cowboy and the soaked orphan had become more than outcasts. They had become symbols of a new dawn breaking over the dusty frontier. Word of the cowboy's kindness and the boy's transformation began to spread beyond the town's boundaries. Travelers and neighboring settlers spoke of the man who gave his coat to a soaked orphan, a story that carried the power to soften even the most hardened hearts. This tale of compassion traveled like the wind, reaching ears that longed for hope in a world often overshadowed by hardship and cruelty. The town itself began to change, slowly but unmistakably. Walls built by fear and suspicion started to crumble as more people dared to question the harsh judgments that had governed their lives. The boy's smile became a beacon, the cowboy's quiet strength a rallying point for those yearning for a kinder, more just community. Together, they had sparked a movement rooted not in violence, but in the simple, radical power of empathy. Yet, beneath the surface of this awakening, challenges still lurked. Old grudges and fears threatened to pull the town back into darkness. The cowboy and the orphan understood that their journey was far from over, that the fight for acceptance and belonging was a continuous one. But armed with the courage born from their shared experiences, they faced the future with hope and unyielding determination. Their story became a living legend, told and retold around campfires and in quiet homes. It was a reminder that even in the wildest, most unforgiving places, the smallest acts of kindness could ripple outward, changing lives and reshaping communities. The coat that had once protected a single boy from the storm had become a symbol of transformation for many. As nights settled over the frontier and the stars shone brightly above, the cowboy and the orphan stood side by side, a testament to the enduring power of compassion and the unbreakable bond forged in the heart of the Old West. As the seasons passed, the boy who had once been nothing more than a drenched, shivering orphan grew into a young man shaped not only by the rugged landscape, but by the unwavering care of the old cowboy. The transformation was more than physical. It was the growth of a spirit nurtured by kindness in a world too often ruled by cruelty. The town's perception slowly shifted as neighbors began to see beyond the boy's past and recognize the strength born from his resilience and the quiet guidance of the man who had given him shelter and hope. Where once there was judgment, there began to bloom a cautious respect, fragile, yet real, and it was fueled by the living proof of what compassion could accomplish. Yet, beneath the surface of this tentative acceptance, old wounds and fears lingered. Not everyone in the town was ready to let go of their hardened hearts. Some whispered in shadowed corners, plotting to remind the cowboy and the boy that defiance would not be tolerated. The boy, now aware of the burdens his presence carried, felt the weight of expectation pressing down on his shoulders. But he did not falter. The lessons he had learned from the cowboy, about strength and kindness, about standing firm even when the world seemed against you, were his armor against the storm. Together, they prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, bound by a bond forged through hardship and hope. Their story spread beyond the town, carried on the wind to neighboring settlements where others struggled under similar shadows of fear and exclusion. The tale of the old cowboy who gave his coat to a soaked orphan became a beacon, inspiring quiet revolutions in hearts and minds. It was a story that reminded people that even in the most unforgiving places, humanity could still prevail. The coat, worn and weathered from years on the trail, was no longer just a garment. It was a symbol of resilience and the transformative power of compassion, a legacy that would endure long after the storms had passed. Despite the growing movement toward acceptance, the path was far from easy. The cowboy and the boy faced threats, both overt and insidious, that tested their resolve. But each challenge only deepened their commitment to each other and to the community, slowly learning to embrace them. Their lives intertwined, not just by circumstance, but by choice. They stood as living proof that kindness could be the fiercest rebellion in a world ruled by suspicion and fear. As the western sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the rugged landscape, the cowboy and the young man stood together, ready to face the uncertain future with courage and unbreakable hope. Their story was no longer just a tale of survival, but a testament to the enduring power of love and humanity to heal even the deepest wounds. Looking back on their journey, it becomes clear that the simple act of the old cowboy giving his coat to a soaked orphan was far more than an isolated moment of charity. It was a spark that ignited transformation in a world hardened by judgment and neglect. Their story reminds us that kindness is not weakness, but a profound strength that has the power to challenge and change entire communities. It teaches us that beneath even the roughest exteriors lies the possibility of connection, and that sometimes the smallest gestures carry the greatest weight in the hearts of those who need them most. The legacy of the cowboy and the orphan is a powerful reminder that we all carry the ability to make a difference through compassion. In a world often divided by fear and misunderstanding, their story calls us to look beyond appearances and histories, to recognize the shared humanity in everyone we encounter. It invites us to be brave enough to extend warmth and protection to those who are vulnerable and to stand against cruelty, no matter the cost. As their tale echoes through the vast canyons and open plains, it challenges us to ask ourselves what acts of kindness we might offer that could change someone's life. How can we, in our own daily journeys, embody the courage and empathy that the old cowboy and the orphan displayed? Their story is not confined to the pages of history. It lives in every moment we choose compassion over indifference and love over judgment. The warmth of that coat, passed from one soul to another, symbolizes the enduring power of human connection in the face of adversity. It is a call to action wrapped in hope, urging us to carry forward the spirit of generosity and resilience. Because sometimes, the greatest revolutions begin not with grand gestures, but with simple acts of kindness that ripple through time. As the stars shine over the endless horizon, their story remains alive, a beacon lighting the way for all who dare to believe that even in the wildest, most unforgiving places, the human heart's capacity to care can change the course of history. The story of the old cowboy and the soaked orphan is more than a tale from the dusty trails of the Old West. It is a profound reminder that kindness has the power to change lives and transform communities. Throughout their journey, we have witnessed how a single act of compassion, a coat given in the coldest of nights, can spark hope where there was despair and light where shadows once ruled. This story teaches us that no matter how harsh the world may seem, the human heart's capacity for empathy and courage remains unbreakable. As we reflect on their path, it becomes clear that true strength lies not in isolation or judgment, but in connection and mercy. The cowboy's choice to shelter the orphan was an act of rebellion against cruelty, a declaration that every soul deserves dignity and warmth. Their journey challenges us to consider how we respond to those who are cast aside or forgotten, and invites us to be the source of hope and kindness in a world that often needs it most. Today, this story calls us to action. What small gestures can we offer that might ripple outward and change someone's life? How can we embody the bravery it takes to stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves? Your thoughts and experiences matter. Sharing them in the comments below can create a space where compassion and understanding grow. And if this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel to join a community dedicated to stories that inspire and uplift. Together, we carry forward the spirit of that lone cowboy and the orphan he saved, a spirit that reminds us all that the simplest acts of kindness can be the most powerful revolutions. Because in the end, it is not the storms we weather, but the warmth we share that shapes our legacy. So, let us all be the ones who give our coat to someone in need, who offer hope in dark times, and who believe in the enduring power of compassion to change the world.